In this tutorial, we'll be looking briefly at the religion known to us today as Hinduism. Obviously, in 10 minutes I can't say everything there is to say about it, but I want to give an outline of its historical development, its major beliefs and practices, and its current state in the world. Hinduism has a long history that reaches back to prehistoric times. In fact, it's the world's most ancient living religion. The name Hindu comes from the ancient Persians, who used it to label people who lived beyond the Indus River, eventually including all the inhabitants of the subcontinent now known as India. The various beliefs of Hindu people came to be grouped together by modern scholars under the heading of Hinduism. Early Hinduism was deeply influenced by the Aryan people, who were an ethnic group who settled in the Indus Valley around 1500 before the Common Era. Some scholars think the Aryans were the sole source of the Hindu traditions and scriptures, while others think they adopted many of the local deities and combined them with their own imported ideology. Farquhar described several significant periods throughout the history of Hinduism. He identified a creative period in the centuries following the appearance of the Aryans, when the earliest of the Hindu scriptures were written down. They were collectively known as the Veda. This was also the time when a sacrificial system and the social structure known as the caste system each became established in India. Another stage ran from around 180 BCE until 320 in the Common Era, which he called the Incarnation period. This was a period when Rama and Krishna, who were previously known as human heroes, now took on the status of incarnations or avatars of the Hindu god Vishnu. Then until around 1200 in the Common Era, there was a period of decay in Hinduism, marked by sectarian conflict and division, followed by a period of reconstruction, when the old sacrificial system fell into disuse, and temple worship and Hindu festivals became more popular. From 1200 on, northern India experienced a brutal Muslim invasion, and during this period, Hindus began to worship with an increasing sense of personal devotion, or bhakti, which means adoration. This period carried through until 1757, when the British became the dominant force in India after winning the Battle of Plassey. This was a period of Western influence, which continued until 1947, when India gained independence from British rule and became a secular democracy. Since then, there's been a shift away from this secular approach because a vast majority of the population are still Hindu, and many Hindus want to return to their traditional values. We'll come back later to discuss what Hinduism looks like today, but first let's take a look at its major beliefs and practices. These can be hard to understand because they vary so widely and because Hinduism has no single authoritative book, no individual founder, and no unified system of belief. But there are some things we can say to make the picture a bit clearer. Hindus accept a vast body of writings as sacred scripture. Essentially, they divide them into two different groups: those that are revealed from God, what they call Suruti, and those that are remembered by people, called Smriti. The ones coming directly from God carry more authority, although even Hindus themselves disagree about which category various writings should fall into. The earliest, most authoritative writings are the four Vedas. The Rig Veda, a book of hymns, the Samaveda, a book of chants, the Yajur Veda, which describes sacrificial formulas, and the Atharva Veda, which consists mostly of spells and incantations. Each of these Vedas contains several types of literature, which represent different stages of development in Hindu thought. The first type are the Samhitas, mostly consisting of praises to various ancient Hindu gods. The second type are the Brahmanas. These give details of Hindu rituals, especially the fire ritual, and teach their significance. The third type are the Aranyakas, meaning forest books. They supplement and expand the themes of the Brahmanas. And the fourth type are the Upanishads. These tend to shift the emphasis away from ritual and more towards personal spiritual development. Taken together, the Vedas and the Upanishads form the Suruti, or the revealed writings. The Smriti writings, of which there are too many to name here, include the epics, the sutras, and the Puranas. There are two Hindu epics, both of which deal with the struggle between good and evil. The first one is the Ramayana, which is a narrative about the exploits of Rama. The second is the Mahabharata, which is an account of civil war where Krishna is the hero. The Mahabharata contains a song called the Bhagavad Gita, which is very influential among Hindus in its own right. There are a number of sutras, which are books written to give clear instructions on proper ritual procedures and also rules for behaviour in different areas of life. The 18 Puranas consist of ancient stories and mythology, and because of their popularity, they have considerable influence on Hindu thinking and religious practice. Hindus understand their deities in many different ways. Some Hindus are monotheistic. They believe in only one God manifested in many different ways. Others are polytheistic, and they recognise a multitude of different gods. And then a substantial number are monistic. They believe that there's one unique divine being that encompasses all material things. Most Hindus recognise a supreme god called Brahman, which is seen as an impersonal force. Many Hindus also worship Vishnu, who is often associated with law, order and righteousness. Some worship Shiva, who often reflects the polarities of life and death, creation and destruction, and so on. Along with some combination of these, Hindus will often worship the images of many other gods, visiting temples and shrines with a desire to catch sight of their chosen deity, in the hope that this will bring them good fortune. Although Hindu religious beliefs vary widely, there are some key ideas held by most, if not all, Hindus. The first one is the idea of dharma. A rough translation would be righteousness. John Grimes defines dharma as, quote, righteousness, merit, religious duty. Literally, it means what holds together. It is the instrumental value to liberation, end quote. In other words, dharma is about doing the right things the right way. The second belief is in something called samsara, which is a never-ending cycle of death and rebirth. Hindus believe that the life they are currently living is part of a long series of lives they are destined to live. This belief in samsara is closely linked to a third belief, something called karma. This is the concept that a person's current circumstances come as a result of the things they did in a previous life, and that the conditions in future lives depend on what they do in this life. Those who live a good life and earn good karma expect to be reborn in a higher caste or social group. Those who earn bad karma expect to return in a lower caste, or possibly even as an animal. People are born into a particular caste and traditionally have no ability to change it, except by trying to earn good karma and living the right way. A person's caste would usually determine their occupation and social standing within Indian society. A great deal of Hindu life consists of efforts to escape this cycle of samsara by climbing through the caste system and ultimately reaching a liberated state known as moksha. Most Hindus believe that in this state they will be permanently freed from the pain and suffering associated with physical earthly life and become one with Brahman, the ultimate reality in the universe. Hindus generally accept that there are three possible paths to moksha: the way of insight or wisdom, the way of action or deeds, and the way of spiritual devotion. Some Hindus believe that just one path should be chosen and pursued, and others believe that a blend of all three is necessary to achieve moksha. Either way, moksha is an important life goal for all Hindus, but it's not the only one. They also generally acknowledge a duty to pursue artha, or wealth, kama, or pleasure, and dharma, which is morality. So, what does Hinduism look like today? Well, strictly speaking, Hinduism is an ethnic religion. That means that a person can't really choose to become a Hindu. You're either born a Hindu or you're not. But that hasn't stopped Hindu beliefs and practice, what we would call Hinduism, becoming popular around the world. The period of British rule in India brought Western nations into sustained contact with Hindu beliefs and generated interest in nations where it was previously unfamiliar. Today, there are estimated to be over 900 million Hindus in India alone, and almost 1 billion adherents of Hinduism around the world. When India gained independence from British rule in 1947, there was a clear rise in Hindu nationalism in reaction to several centuries of foreign domination. This rise in nationalism has continued, largely in reaction to the government's secularisation of Indian society. Secularisation, which aimed at religious neutrality, enabled inroads by Islam and Christianity, and a gradual decline in the proportion of the population who are Hindu. Driven by an ideology known as Hindutva, or Hinduness, Hindu nationalism has developed significantly through the 1980s and 90s, and has often led to a cycle of violence, as Hindu conservatives push for India to be a Hindu state. One can see the extent of this sentiment in the landslide victory of the nationalist BJP party in the 2014 election. But at the same time, progressives have been working towards dismantling or at least weakening many traditional Hindu practices, such as the caste system and child marriage. This has stirred up a passionate debate which has not yet been resolved. So there you have it, a quick snapshot of the religion we know as Hinduism.